The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. Final podcast for season number 4 of the Sandy and Toddcast. You ready for this one?
I'm ready for this one. I think it's going to be silly and goofy like it usually is. It's just us, Todd. So wrapping up season number 4. I can't wait.
Just us. Kind of like Just Jack from Will and Grace. Just us. Just us. Season 4, episode 16 is on the way. We're calling this one Let Us Wrap Up the Season. And it's next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Tarot time. If you're listening to this podcast, the divine messages are definitely for you. Let's combine science and magic, shall we? Root cause analysis, business planning, counseling, and good old-fashioned intuitive tarot readings so we can improve your near future circumstances by addressing your present scenarios. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. For more in-depth tarot consultations, please book your readings at positivetarotwisdom.com. Infinite love and blessings for everyone.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Welcome to the final episode of season number 4. This is episode number 16 of the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And here we go. Final one.
We actually got that down. She is Sandy. He is Todd. It only took us 4 seasons.
I was going to say, yeah, we've been working on it every week, but...
So, yeah, wrapping up season 4. I don't know why, but this seemed like a really long season. Not in a bad way, just a really long season for me. I think it's because we took our time and we just had some fun with it and did our own thing this season.
For me, it was not as long, but I think the final 4 weeks have taken forever. I think that's what it is. Like early on, it went fast, and then we got to a certain point, and then
it slowed down. And part of it, I think, is anticipation and planning. Like, I'm trying to plan our bonus episodes, all that bonus content that we're going to put in between the seasons, because we're going to take a little bit longer this time instead of 2 weeks. We're going to take about a month this time. And so I have plenty of bonus content, just trying to figure out when and what I want to put in what order and everything. Yeah, I'm really anal retentive about that stuff. So...
And then we'll plan some lives maybe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to plan some lives for season 5. And then, of course, we'll be out there visiting you in June, like right around the beginning of the season. So we'll probably do some live stupid, goofy stuff together, which, is typical. So that should be fun, too.
Well, I got to do this. This is something that I always like to do on the air because I think it's always nice to have sound effects. So,
that was good. And that, everybody, we see each other on video. Everybody else can't. But that actually was the perfect sound. You did it. I'm having a celebratory drink as we speak for the final podcast of the season. I have diet caffeine-free Coke, but mine is like the screw top, so it's not really that exciting. I could burp for you like I usually do or something.
Gonna do
that? Would be a good sound effect. No, I can't make myself do it on demand. That's why you make fun of me, because it just comes out at the most inopportune moments.
Yeah, she can't really control it. It's just like, hi, I'm...
So season 5, we're going to do something. We already planned it out. We are going to concentrate... primarily in season 5 on, drumroll please, or AK-47, because it sounded like a automatic rifle.
It's more like a drum would be like.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
We gotcha. No, we're going to take care of a lot more paranormal stuff in season 5. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll still have some of our favorites back on, and you know, maybe we'll even get a session with Aaron, or maybe even Eric in season 5. But we really want to focus on paranormal research, groups that are doing it, equipment, all that kind of stuff, because that's really where we started. And I think right now it's kind of interesting. I don't know why exactly, but I feel like right now is a good time to really kind of take a step back, take a look around at the TV shows, at the groups, and see what's working and what's not working. And I think that, you know, there's a couple of new things that I saw that might be coming out very shortly. The team from Ghost Hunters that were part of the revamp that only stuck around a season or 2. Brandon Elvis is one of them, and Mustafa is the other one. They've got a new show coming out.
I did not know that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some new things that are kind of creeping out there. We've got our favorites that I love talking about. And I really would love to get some of these people on to talk to them about their theories and their philosophies and how they investigate, because I think that's so, so important.
Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of the ideas that I take into my investigations come from things that I see on TV. And very good comparison. When I was first learning how to be an on-air radio personality, a DJ, I would listen to the different DJs all around me, whether I was traveling or just in my own market, to take pieces that I thought were really good, pieces of the things that they did, and interpret them into my own style. And similarly, in paranormal investigating, not only from the TV, but just in general, I look to other groups and other shows to see what I can relate to and what might work for me. And then I use it in my investigations. And so far, a lot of the stuff, I've taken ideas from Kindred Spirits, from Portals to Hell, from Ghost Hunters, the original Ghost Hunters. I've taken a bunch of stuff, a bunch of ideas from, and used them in my investigations. And they work. They work for me. So I think it's interesting to look around you, not only as on a TV level, but even on a local level, at some of the other groups and what they do. See, we're all in this together. And I know there tends to be a little bit of maybe a little less camaraderie sometimes and a little bit more competition sometimes. Oh, they got this theater or they got that jail and how come we can't get in there? But the truth is we are all in this together. And if you're in it for the right reasons, then why would you care who gets what? As long as we can try to find answers to things. And so I think it's really important to be able to get other ideas and talk to other people in the paranormal world, in the investigating world, to see what they do, how they handle it, what situations they've been in, what situations they would like to be in, and what their whole thought process is on paranormal investigating. Everybody's a little bit different, and I think we can all learn from each other.
We also have to take into consideration if you're thinking about joining a team, not every team matches with every individual. And, there's some local teams that I wouldn't mind necessarily getting involved with, but I've also, when you research them and you see a little bit of their techniques, maybe it's just not for me. And, so that's something to keep in mind too. Every group has a different lean to it a little bit.
Right.
And I want to be able to go into a place and really go in calmly, but I want to enjoy the investigation.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to feel rushed. I don't want to feel like we have to push for stuff to happen. I want to get the lay of the land. I want to get the feel for the place. I want to enjoy being there because for me, I've got nothing to prove. For me to go out and investigate and get evidence or not get evidence isn't going to change anything in the research world. Right. I'm doing it for my own personal benefit. Right. What am I getting out of it? I'm getting some, as you mentioned, learning some the ability to go out and actually deal with this stuff one-on-one. So you get your own thought processes on stuff. So I'm going out there for that, and just the experience of doing it. I'm not going out to get scared. I'm not going out to get freaked out or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about going out, enjoying the energy of a location, seeing what happens, and taking that experience just like you would any other experience in your life. The first time you see a concert, the first time you saw a certain movie, the way you feel about family and friends or a special location where you live. That's what I want it to be for me. So I'm not trying to prove anything. I've got nothing to write. There's no TV show. There's nothing to that kind of. If I go right now, I want to go for my own benefit. So I need to make sure that the people I choose to investigate with at least match up to that. They may have other thoughts and reasons for doing it themselves, and that's okay. But I need to be able to do my thing too.
And that's a great point, is you need to be able to be who you are during your investigation. And that's so important because you can be with a group. Now, I love my scientific equipment like anybody else. I have a ton of it. I'm actually trying to build a second SLS camera, a handheld one now, because I think they're really neat. And I think they can help with the overall investigation. So I love my scientific equipment. But being someone who has abilities that are other than scientific, each investigation that I do is super personal for me. Like, I connect with these people. I actually connect with these people. So it becomes very personal for me. I can't be in a team that relies solely on scientific equipment. And vice versa, because I do enjoy the scientific equipment, and I think it goes hand in hand with the personal experiences. So I couldn't be with a team of just psychics who, only use pendulums or anything like that. So you really have to find the team that you're most comfortable with, that understands that it's not going to be one way or another. Sometimes in an investigation, I put down all the equipment, and I just want to sit there in silence and talk. And then I want to listen. And then I might talk a little bit more. And then I might listen a little bit more. And I want to take in all the surroundings. You can't do that if you have 1,000,001 scientific instruments going off and people running around and all this craziness. So you have to figure out what is the best fit for you if you want to do this. It changed for me over the years. Before I actually started investigating and started understanding the abilities that I have, I just kind of thought it would be thrilling to be able to go do this stuff. And then once I got in the middle of it and I realized that I could connect with these people, these spirits, this energy, it just totally turned my world upside down. And now I have a completely different purpose than I did in the beginning. And so you just have to be really sure that who you're with is the right fit for you.
And as you said, that can change.
And it can change.
Yeah, what you're dealing with and how you are now and the group you're with today may not fit your situation next year, Right.
We all evolve. I look at it now as it's part of my journey. Regardless of who I'm helping, whether it's the location owner or it's the spirit itself, or maybe it's me just evolving and becoming more in tune with what I can do. It's part of the journey. And that's why I have a hard time with people who are in it just for the likes and comments and shares, because that's not how I do it. If you want to do it like that, you go right ahead. But I think that you should be doing some good with it instead of, what's the word I want, Todd? It's not exploiting. Exploiting,
right, yep.
The paranormal world by doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing or aren't ethical.
I don't know if you can hear it in the background.
I hear him.
Do you?
Yeah.
Somebody's dreaming as he's sleeping in the studio.
I've got mine right next to me, too, only he's being really quiet right now. So I kind of... Hopefully he's running through fields and,
Here's the thing about Winston. He never barks. He doesn't bark, ever. I've heard him bark in I've had him for 4, 5, 6 years. In 6 years, I've heard him bark maybe twice, and it's been one row, and that's it. And it's usually at like somebody pulling into the driveway and he doesn't know who it is, that kind of thing. Aww. So he doesn't bark. He kind of talks a little bit with grunts and, moans and stuff like that. But he barks only when he's sleeping.
It's so cute.
And then he barks he just barked for I don't know, a minute or 2 minutes straight while you were talking and stuff. So
I wish we knew exactly what they were dreaming about, but we'll never know. But it's so cute. It's so sweet. When Spike gets going too, he'll do it. He'll snort. He'll bark. He'll do all kinds of stuff. When Dave gets home from work, or if I walk in the door when he's crated, he howls, which is hilarious because he's a Boston Terrier, and most Boston Terriers don't howl.
Right.
But he'll howl, and it's hilarious. They just get so excited.
I have only heard him. He howls when the noon whistle goes off on Saturdays, or if a fire truck goes by, he'll howl at that. But when he does it, in the middle of the night, you could be sleeping, and all of a sudden you'll hear, because he's dreaming and he's howling, and his dream is the spookiest damn thing in the world.
So cute,
what are you howling at?
Does he sleep on the bed with you at night?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does Spike. So I end up in a fetal position by the next morning because he's got the whole entire my side of the bed except for this little quadrant at the top.
Yep.
But such is life with a dog. That's how
you wouldn't want it any other way.
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
Well, I suppose we should talk about what we were going to talk about on the podcast.
I know. Totally got off on that tangent. But so season 5 will be a lot of paranormal stuff. I hope everybody's looking forward to that because we are. A lot of cool stuff. Speaking of paranormal, I had an interesting investigation last weekend that was really cool. We did an old jail from the 1830s. But the land itself was extremely active. So not just the jail, but the land itself was very active. There was, now I don't want to give too much away because we are actually doing a fundraiser for the Herkimer County Historical Society, hopefully in July, tentatively slated for July. No final word on when yet. So that's what we investigated the jail for. They take care of the jail. And extremely active. We had an amazing night. Did some pretty cool things, connected with some amazing and very well-known guests at the jail, so to speak. One of them being Roxalana Drews, who was convicted of murdering her husband, her abusive husband, with the help of her children and her nephew in the I believe it was 1885 or 86, and was sentenced to hang. She was hung in the back of the jail, and she was the last woman to be hung in the state of New York.
Oh.
Because it backfired, and they thought, okay, we better change the way that we're going to do things from now on. They changed it to the electric chair. What happened was, now everybody is used to seeing the gallows that look like when President Lincoln's assassinators were hung, where you just kind of drop through the hole in the floor. This was a different kind of gallows. It was counterweighted so that instead of dropping down through a hole in the floor, a big weight was dropped down.
Ooh.
And it was supposed to jerk you up and immediately break your neck and kill you. Well, Roxy was only, I think, 5'2" maybe, and she weighed about 95 pounds, and they didn't calibrate it correctly. And so when the counterweight went down and she went up, she actually strangled to death. It took about 15 minutes for her to die. Yes. And so she died a very gruesome death. And so that's when New York State changed their laws. And so she was found guilty. Her son is actually buried literally 5 minutes from where I live. And her daughter, Mary, was sentenced to life in prison and was pardoned 10 years later. She went on to live to be 49 years old, and she's actually buried in Syracuse, New York. So we're going to be visiting those graves. And there will be a lot more information once the fundraiser is done. But a lot of stuff went on in the jail last Saturday night regarding Roxy. We also connected with 2 other murderers, Chester Gillette, who was executed by electric chair in, I think it was 1907, for murdering his, I guess, sort of girlfriend, Grace Brown. He was just kind of, to her, he was her somewhat almost fiance. To him, it was just another girl that he was seeing.
Typically like so many relationships in the world.
Exactly. She got pregnant, and he took her up to Big Moose Lake in the Adirondacks of New York State and hit her over the head with a tennis racket, and then over into the lake she went, and she drowned. And so he was found guilty of murder. He was executed. He was sent to state prison eventually once he was found guilty, but he was at the jail in Herkimer for several weeks. And we actually did some work inside his cell, connected with him, and Gene Giannini, who was a 16-year-old boy who was very disruptive in class and had some issues, and he was expelled. This was in don't quote me on this, 1914, I believe. He actually was trying to get his school teacher, 21-year-old school teacher, to talk to his father so that he could get back in school. She refused because she really had nothing to do with it, but finally relented, and on the way to the house, he hit her over the head with a wrench and then stabbed her.
Ugh.
16 years old. And his case was the first case of, I guess, preliminary case of insanity. They determined that his mental capacity was about that of a 10-year-old. And for that reason, he wasn't sentenced to death. He was actually sentenced to life in a mental institution. He died at the age of 90. We had some interesting things going on in the cell. He shared the same cell as Chester, only about 7 years later. And we had some really interesting stuff going on in there. Things were manipulated. We have some photos of things that were manipulated. Very, very interesting. And we also did a seance, which is the first seance that I've ever done in my life, in the basement of the jail. And we had some absolutely wild things going on in there that I have never experienced in my life. And so all of this will come out with time, but I just want to give everybody a heads up. This was probably my absolute favorite investigation. I say this all the time because each one seems to get better and better, but my absolute favorite investigation that we have ever done. We did it in tandem with our friends from APS, Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. It was a smaller scaled down group of us. It was just a few of us from my group and then a few from their group. We did it together. It worked beautifully. Still going through all the evidence, but some fantastic evidence so far. And so I'll keep everybody posted on that fundraiser that we're doing for the jail, where we will be there and we will be able to walk everybody through and give them all of the evidence that we actually received that night from the investigation. Todd, I'm telling you, absolutely amazing stuff. And I did send you some of that. So you, when you get a chance, I want you to listen to it. Just the audio from the seance so far, but pretty amazing stuff.
So, like, when I listen to this, what am I going to hear? Like, ooh, Sandy, like stuff like that, or not quite?
It's interesting because, one of my things is I get names. I can tell whether a male or female presence is with us. And I was picking up people left and right. And I was picking up names and, it's, and when you can actually have video, audio, and personal experiences all syncing up at the same time, it's really, really crazy. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little creeped out by the stuff that we came upon. So pretty cool.
So
pretty
not
cool
so
stuff.
not quite. Ooh.
No.
But
no.
almost.
And, well, not quite Scooby-Doo-ish, if that's what you're asking me.
Damn.
It's kind of like Scooby-Doo, I know. Wouldn't it be great to be in my own Scooby-Doo episode?
Kind. That's where we got our logo from. That's supposed to be very Scooby-Doo-ish, right?
I know.
That's what we would look like if we were on Scooby-Doo.
Me scaring you and you like freaking out. I know. But that's my dream, is to be on a Scooby-Doo investigation. But yeah, so really, really cool. I was so drained. We did this Saturday night. I was so drained on Sunday that, I don't even think I talked to you much.
You didn't.
I was exhausted. I mean, it takes a lot out of you because you basically are absorbing energy all night long. It was really crazy. Probably the most exhausted I've been on any investigation so far, but it was definitely worth it. Bucket list right there.
Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? With special guest Cassandra the Psychic.
Yeah, I know, right?
And your character has a turban and the fancy gypsy dress and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and you know what was cool too is that we actually had a true trigger object. We actually had the actual lantern that the night watchman would use to go around the jail at night and check on Chester and all of the other inmates. And a lot of people tend to focus on those three infamous inmates, and I will say that they're definitely there.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of other people, some that we didn't expect, and that was really mind-blowing. And there's so many different layers of energy in there. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. So a lot of stuff to talk about once this becomes public, because we could do a whole episode just on all the evidence that we have and all the experiences that we have. So super cool stuff. So be listening for all of my local, semi-local people, just be listening for some information on that fundraiser coming up, because it's going to be an amazing, amazing night. Hopefully this summer it'll be happening. So that'll be good for our season 5 paranormal stuff.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad it turned out well for you and all that.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get when you go into something, and I was trying so hard not to have all these big expectations, because I think that's when nothing happens. But I'm happy to say that more happened than I guess I could probably have handled based on my Sunday time spent. But yeah. So really cool stuff. And then I also found this out, and this was interesting. I, for a long time, my grandmother, of course, passed away when I was just 20 years old. She passed away in 1991. And not knowing myself that I had abilities, I never knew to ask her anything. And now looking back on it all these years later, I'm pretty convinced that my grandmother had some abilities. I think that at the very least, she was a strong empath, but I always suspected some more stuff, maybe precognition, dreams about things. So I have been fortunate in the past couple of years to have connected with 2 of my cousins. They would have been my grandmother's brother, 2 of his daughters. And so we are friends on Facebook now. And one of them messaged me the other day to tell me a little story, because I've been really interested in finding out about that side of my family, because I never really got a chance to. And I took the plunge and I asked her if anyone, because you don't know who you can really ask these questions to, right? I asked her if anyone on my grandmother's side of the family had any kind of psychic abilities that they knew of. And my cousin actually told me she did. And her other sister did. She believes that her father did, which would be my grandmother's brother. And she wouldn't be surprised if my grandmother did. And this was like the biggest aha moment I think I may have ever had, because I was literally crying. I was so excited because that meant that, yes, it does run in your family. And yes, I'm not alone. And it was just wild. It was just such a cool experience. So I'm very grateful that she was honest with me about it, and that, hopefully I can find out a little bit more about the things that went on my grandmother's side of the family as far as abilities.
And again, one of those things that nobody talks about, the family doesn't talk about, or you would have known years ago that this went on, but everybody goes, shh, don't say anything. We can't talk about this stuff.
Well, because a lot of people back then, it's sort of like mental illness back then. In those days, if you had a child that was mentally ill or in any way, autistic, depression, anything, you just pretended that it didn't happen, and they were just labeled as problem children, like brats. Nobody stopped to really look into why these children are having difficulties. They were just brats. They were just difficult children. And it's the same, I think, with the paranormal stuff, is that, you just didn't talk about it because people thought you were crazy. I didn't mention anything in my life. Even once I had an inkling, I didn't mention anything because I thought people would think I was absolutely nuts. And I know you think I am anyways.
I was going to say it, but I let you say it.
I was beating you to it. So, but yeah, so it's just super cool. And, I will say this, going back real quick to the investigation from Saturday night, Gene Giannini, they labeled him as basically an imbecile, and that's the term they used back then. But I'm not so sure, after connecting with him and after some of the stuff that happened Saturday night at his cell, I'm not so sure that he wasn't autistic. I'm not so sure that he wasn't on the autism scale, something that in the early 1900s they would have had no idea about. And he was highly intelligent. He wrote poetry. But yet his social skills were non-existent. Hence all of the disruptions and the way he would act and think. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, and of course there's no way of knowing this now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was autistic. And I have a nephew who is autistic, and he takes medication for violent outbursts. And he is not violent because of his medication. But can you imagine being an autistic person at that time and needing medication for violent outbursts and not getting medication for violent outbursts? So that's just something, to think about. They just didn't talk about that stuff. They didn't have the knowledge of it that we do today. And so things like that just were kind of swept under the rug and not handled in the correct way. So, yeah, really interesting stuff.
Sandy's got a history in her family. It runs in the family, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it runs in the family, apparently. So I don't know.
Would you ask them, too, if any of them have, like, husbands or mates that, just kind of go along for the ride and put up with a lot of shit? Can you ask that, too?
You know what, though?
How many other Daves are there in the family?
This is funny. I was just telling Dave last night how proud of him I am, because I am telling you, Todd, Dave, who used to be a really big skeptic, and don't get me wrong, I'm a skeptic too, to a certain degree, but I'm also open-minded, has completely changed his thought process to become very much more open-minded, but still staying skeptical enough that I can bounce ideas off of him and evidence off of him, and he can say, no, you're losing your mind, or yeah, you're right, And he's become very serious about investigating on our team, and I'm super, super proud of him. Like, he's really doing well. So
I really wish we could just do this kind of stuff full time, like just visit cemeteries and do podcasts and do investigations and say the hell with the real life shit.
I know. This is like this is my passion. Cemeteries and death in the paranormal world. That's kind of creepy to say, but it's true. Like, this is my passion. If I can help, I'll help. You know? If I can. That's why I want to visit Roxy's kids, because I think that there's a lot more to Roxy's story than ever came out. And I think that by visiting her children, which I promised her Saturday night I would do, I think that by visiting her children, it just makes a connection and it just helps in some way, I think. So, yeah.
Love it. Glad you had a good investigation.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Really good. And, I have to tell you, know how sometimes we talk about vampires?
Sometimes, yes.
Your whole thing with vampires. Well, I found an article. I just have to share this with everybody. It won't take long, but I found an article about vampire bats.
Okay.
That I thought was so cool, because we all grow up with the legends and the lores of vampire bats.
Blah,
They suck your blood and all this stuff, right? So actually, scientists have figured out why vampire bats can exist solely on blood, and not people's blood per se, but any blood. They did a little bit of science and they compared the genome of common vampire bats to 26 other bat species. And they found that there are 13 different genes that are missing or no longer work in vampire bats. So over the years, those gene tweaks help them to adapt to a blood diet, which is rich in iron and protein, but doesn't have any fats or carbohydrates. Now, vampire bats live in South and Central America, and they're basically, they call them living Draculas. They bite and then they lap up the blood from livestock, other animals at night. And that's where all the legends and lore actually come from, the whole vampire bat thing. Most mammals couldn't survive on a low-calorie liquid diet of blood, but there are only 3 different vampire species of the 1,400 different kinds of bats that can do that. The others eat mostly insects, fruit, nectar, pollen, or meat, like small frogs or fish. So people who see bats in their house, it's normal to feel terrified by them, but they're actually very docile, sweet creatures. They are not going to hurt you. They're not going to do anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, but then there's the vampire bats who feast on blood. So this is really interesting, though. With such a low-calorie diet, vampire bats can't go long without a meal. So in a pinch, what they'll do is they'll regurgitate their food and share it with their starving neighbor bat. They seem to keep track of who's helped them in the past, and they try to help them. It's not really like a kin thing, like a family thing. They just notice and they remember, well, you're a good sharer, so I'm going to share with you now. And so they share blood with each other, which is another thing that vampires do, right? They take the blood from each other and they keep it from them for themselves. So I just found it very interesting that there's all of this lore wrapped around vampire bats, and it's actually true, because everybody loves their vampire bat lore, but they don't really realize that it's actually steeped in truth. Most of it, not all of it. I mean, vampire bats aren't going to come and suck your blood at night like you believe, but, So I just thought that's interesting. They figured out why vampire bats live like that. So they have missing genes.
So here's what I think is interesting. Being somebody who always, has the weight issues in life where it's up and it's down. Mm-hmm. And it's too fat, too thin. My whole freaking life.
Story of my life.
So I'm hearing from you, this is a low-calorie diet, low carb. What was the other thing it was low in?
Low calorie, low carb, and low fat.
Low fat. Here we go. I think we have just found my new diet. I'm going to become a vampire.
It's basically a diabetic stream. I'm supposed to be low fat, low carb, and low calorie. And so, ta-da!
So
I'm surprised somebody hasn't come out with something that's, a play off of it.
Sure, maybe I look a little bit thinner, a little bit whiter, but maybe I'll live forever.
You know what? I was going to ask you, how now, because of your leg, and you're not getting obviously as much mobility and exercise, how are you handling that? Like, is it hard to keep the weight off with less mobility?
Now, here's the thing. Every year during the off season, I call it the winter months, the fall months, the holidays, I gain weight. I did not gain as much as when I first met you, I was at my heaviest that I've ever been.
Right.
I didn't gain. I'm not up there. Not even. I'm like 20 pounds off that at this point. But I did gain some. But I'm working on getting it off again. So I'm. But it is kind of tough because I can walk around and stuff like that. But there's some down moments when you're doing nothing but sitting on your ass, icing your knee and stuff like that. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and winter certainly doesn't help because I felt like a big old lazy bum all winter long because especially with COVID and everything, we're not going out and it's cold and I'm not going out. So the only time I went out of the house all winter long was really essentially to go to doctor's appointments, of which you make fun of me because I have a lot of them. But that was the only time I went out of the house. So now that the weather's getting a little better, it's cold today, though. And it was yesterday.
We're going to be cold for a while yet. They say maybe not until June before it really warms up for our part of the country. The other thing, too, is like the stuff, I'm a stress eater and I like comfort food.
Yep.
And so the stuff that fall into that category, the breads and the pastas and the potatoes and all that kind of stuff. Potatoes, I don't have a reaction to other than they're full of carbs. But like the pasta, I get allergic reactions to grains. So rice, wheat, even corn. So I deal with that. And then the ice cream, on the other hand, like I said in the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago, I can be skywriting afterward because
I love that term.
So, I mean, yeah, all the stuff that I really like. Now, I love vegetables.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but,
honestly, 2012, I was diagnosed with diabetes and I had to kind of train myself to not eat all of those. Like, I don't eat pasta anymore. I rarely eat rice. I rarely eat bread. If I eat something in the quote bread category, it's usually, a low carb wrap or a piece of low carb bread. I've had to train myself over the years not to do that. So I don't eat mac and cheese anymore, which I could eat 12 cups of at one sitting. But my problem is the sweets.
Yeah, I don't have the sweets problem.
See, that's my problem. I eat nothing but vegetables most of the time. I'll eat some lean chicken and vegetables. I don't eat red meat. So but it was hard this winter. I actually have, for the most part, kept it off. I might go up a pound or 2 and then down a pound or 2, over the winter. I did good. But it was a tough winter to really concentrate because there was no going out. You know what I mean? There was like nothing going on except the doctor. So I'm hoping that this summer we're going to be more active this summer and everything. So with our geocaching and all that stuff. So I'm hoping. But 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years in July, we started our diet, our Weight Watchers thing. And how much did you lose on that? You had already started, I think.
I went from about, there were 2 rounds of it though. Like I went on it, lost a bunch. Then I gained some back again, like always. And then I lost a bunch. About right before you got home, before you visited, I was probably at my lowest I'd been in a while. It was about 185. Yeah,
you were pretty thin.
And I was actually when you came, I was actually heavier than I had been prior to that.
But you were also dealing with sickness over the summer.
Right.
So, yeah, but you were pretty thin. But I was so glad we did that because I lost like 30 pounds. Now I'm at 23 pounds. I gained like 7 pounds back over the past 2 years. But I think that I call that a victory because if I only gain, a lot of people gain it all back and then some.
Yeah. No, I didn't get it all back. But, it certainly goes up and down and up and down. Yeah. And Jesus Christ, can I have a fucking cookie?
I just look at it as, you know what? I could spend all my life worrying about a pound or 2 or I could just be happy and do my thing, and you know what I mean? So I'm
and
just
be happy and eat a package of Thin Mints. I mean, that's the other problem with me. Like, if I do have something like that, it can't be one or two. There's just no way.
I can't have something in the house. Like, I can't, like my birthday cake, it was horrible because every year I treat myself to my birthday cake. I ask for a birthday cake for my birthday because I don't really eat cake otherwise.
Right.
So, but once that cake is in the house, that cake is gone, like, very quickly. Like, there is no stopping me. If I know it's in the house, I want it. So Dave will say, oh, why don't we freeze some of it? I'll go, okay. And then I'll be eating frozen cake next thing you know, because that's what I do. So I just have to be careful. But, you know, so when we come out in June, we'll just eat some bread and dessert and get all fat and sassy, and it'll be fun.
You say that. I'm pretty sure you say that every damn podcast. I'm going to come out in June, and we're just going to eat bread and get all sassy and shit.
We're going to drink.
Sassy.
We're going to get drunk, and we're going to just be all wacky. It'll be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. All right, you want to do your spiel?
Okay, you ready to go?
Yep.
This is the last one because I'm having somebody record it so I don't have to keep remembering everything because I'm getting old. All right, ready? All right, guys, make sure that you like us on Facebook, the Sandy and Toddcast. Now, we also have a group called Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. We're up to about 230 members right now, and it's really just a safe space for you to come in, share your thoughts, your ideas, your ridiculously inappropriate memes, all kinds of weird stuff. Ask questions, non-judgmental. Nobody's going to care. And everybody just supports each other. It's a really cool group. And we've made a lot of friends in this group. So Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook. Just give us a join and we'll let you in. And you can also find this podcast on any of the platforms that you would find your podcast. So if you look on Audible, you'll find us. Spotify, you'll find us. Everybody, everywhere, you'll find us. We have another podcast called the Empathecary podcast. Todd and I are empaths. And so we thought it would be neat to do a podcast series about and for empaths, so that if you are an empath or maybe you just love an empath, maybe they're in your family, you can understand more about what they go through on a daily basis, because it ain't easy all the time. That's the Empathecary podcast. Find that on Facebook. And we also have a side project called Mind Garden Media. Todd and I will do some podcast editing, production, and consulting for you. If you have any questions at all in your mind about starting a podcast, hit us up. We have a page on Facebook, Mind Garden Media, or you can email us at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. Let us know what you want to do and what time frame you want to do it in, and we'll set something up with you and talk to you about it. We can give you some guidance and some good ideas about how to get started. Everybody has something to talk about, so if you're interested in doing a podcast, just let us know. And I think that's it, right?
I think so. You're the one who's got the spiel. It's Sandy's spiel.
I know. But I think I got everything. So
let me just ask you right on the podcast. Should we ask Dean to do the spiel for us?
Oh, my gosh.
Our
Dean
English?
would be great at it. Oh, my gosh. Dean would be great at it. And he would love it because he loves us and we love him.
I'm going to tap it right now. Dean, would you voice something for our podcast? Sandy says, open quotes, pretty please.
He will now.
Close quotes.
He will now. He loves us.
Well, looks like he just blocked me. I'm kidding. He didn't block me.
Dean is awesome. Dean, our friend in the UK.
Yeah. Good guy.
Yep.
Well, it's been a nice time. I'm glad we're on hiatus for a little bit. And if you don't hear from us again, we wish you all the best.
If you don't hear from us again, I went out to Wisconsin and strangled Todd. Just saying.
Or after she
Todd.
strangled God. After she... That's right. This is God. Sandy strangled me. And now I will haunt her till the end of time.
Uh-oh. God's going to haunt me. Oh,
so, yeah, if you strangled me, I'm going to make your life hell.
I'll come back to haunt you. Anyways, plenty of bonus content coming your way over the next few weeks as well. So
keep your eye open. We might do a live in there too, just for fun or whatever.
Just for fun. But just be watching for some bonus content, some fun stuff. Some of it goes back to the fall, which is great because even if you paid attention to some of the stuff we did last fall in the live cast, this is after the live cast bonus.
That's right. So. Well, dear, have a great hiatus, and
thanks,
I'll see you in June. And
okay.
Until then, bye.
Bye.